Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Good morning everyone. May we all be in a good health and always in His protection. First of all, I would like to say thank you to Mr. Muhammad Ihsan as lecturer of this class. And before I start the presentation, let me introduce myself. My name is Naurah Ismah, majoring in Public Administration, Class 6A, State Islamic University of Bandung. In this presentation, I will discuss about policies, systems, and challenges education in South Korea. There's four subjects I will discuss. First is South Korea education policy, second is South Korea education system, third is South Korea education challenge, and last is South Korea education now and in the future. The progress of education in the Republic of South Korea has been planned gradually and continuously by the government. Education is the main focus of the South Korean government to improve the economic and social aspect of South Korean society. The South Korean government takes full responsibility and exists to advance the nation through education, economy, social, and culture. The education system is carried out sequentially and in stages, making valuable experiences, successes, failures, and educational challenges the result of a long process. South Korea is a country profile that focuses on improving the quality of society through education. Innovations continue to be developed with a quantitative approach toward qualitative, such as expansion of elementary, secondary, and higher education, increasing the number of educators, providing educational assistance for the community, 9-year compulsory education, and Brain Korea 21. South Korea education policy. Education policy in South Korea is carried out through two main things, namely curriculum and teaching methods that combine teachers and students as learning centers. They are supported by beliefs and socio-cultural factors. Student-centered learning is reflected in the policy towards progressive education. The education phase in South Korea can be divided into three. First, from year 1945 to late 1950. Is a period of rebuilding the legal and institutional basis of the education system, as well as revoking the restructuring of colonial education. Second, from 1960 to 1990, namely the emergence of spirit of education that spreads to all levels of society because school education is regulated by an authoritarian government, and the focus of nationalism is to encourage the economy and national reconciliation, with compulsory primary school education, secondary education, and higher education. Next, the third is the middle of 1990s until now, is an education that democratizes and decentralizes in challenging globalization for after the political system loses authoritarian politics. The school system in South Korea consists of early childhood education, primary education, secondary education, higher education, and lifelong education. South Korean people have a high passion for education. Even parents encourage their children to go study tutoring places other than the material that has been crammed in at school. Students are willing to add 1 year of study time to take private lessons before entering the university level. South Korea has given its experience that education provides the accumulation of human capital, which is indeed very important for rapid economic development. Human resources are needed because economic development changes from time to time, so the education system must be able to meet changing demands. South Korean education system. The formation of funding for basic education is offered free of charge by the South Korean government, while for secondary and higher education and universities, South Korea carries out a double principle, which is to impose a burden of students and schools. National universities receive additional funding from the state, while private universities finance independently. South Korea's quality education system rests on four pillars. First, placing education at the center of long-term development strategy. Second, getting the right people to become teachers. Third, developing these teachers into effective teachers. Fourth, prioritizing information and communication technology in education. South Korea Education Challenge. In the midst of South Korea's excellent educational progress, these are always educational challenges. Some important challenges to consider in South Korea education. First is gender equality. The challenge for women's education in South Korea is to consider the similarities and differences in the female population to formulate plans for an active transition for education to the labor market. Second, still focusing on quantity. The South Korean government has succeeded in developing with changes in the political and economic field over time, addressing the problem of illiteracy, compulsory education, reducing competition for college entrances, expanding lifelong education, and others. However, the new public policy focuses on quantity rather than quality. Third is students who are burnt in learning. There are several reasons students in South Korea have problems related to low levels of student happiness in school, namely high competitiveness when going to university and the burden of private tutoring which requires spending family money and pressure on students themselves. Finally, students lack confidence and interest in the educational curriculum. Fourth is private tutoring program on family finance. Educational level over investment in after-school private tutoring programs by South Korean families and their children is a problem in itself. The community hopes that the children who have become investment can meet the changing labor market, but instead the debt increases and the family house installments are paid. Fifth, the problem of dropouts and neglected students. The South Korean curriculum is moving towards a social studies curriculum model that is in accordance with the National Council for the Social Studies (NCSS) to meet the country's needs. This can be a weakness such as limited time in the learning process with a lot of material so that the learning objectives cannot be achieved properly. Dropouts and students at risk should not be ignored. South Korean education now and in the future. South Korea has placed education above its national development priority, invested heavily in education, developed and aligned the education system with its national development plan. South Korea recognized that a trained workforce can drive economic growth but lacks the resources to invest in individual schools, so Korea is taking a gradual, sequential, and tiered approach. This gradual development is concentrated on education which goes hand in hand with the country's demand for social and economic growth. This is done from primary to secondary education and finally higher education. The conclusion of this discussion is adequate management technique and internal requirement of teaching staff and students have been the key to the success of science and higher education in the country. The complex reform efforts undertaken by the South Korean government in the last 30 years have also contributed to this success. But these reforms have also led to a situation where science is in danger of degrading the quality of research papers and research articles due to excessive quantity and lack of quality control. Nelson Mandela said, "Education is the most powerful weapon which you can use to change the world." So many discussions that I can convey about policies, systems, and challenges education in South Korea. Thank you for all your attention. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh.